What an opening weekend for MLS. We saw some blowouts, some comebacks, some of the best teams fall apart, and maybe most importantly, we saw the league reign supreme of all other leagues because European football is falling apart. Welcome to this review show on MLS's first game week of 2021. It's me, your host and advocate against the European Super League, Anthony LaRosa. To begin, we're going to be looking at the three things I learned from game week 1. And the first on that list has to do with MLS Cup runners-up. This offseason, Seattle lost some key guys. Attacking threat Jordan Morris was loaned out and suffered a season-ending ACL injury. Reliable backup Jovan Jones was traded to Inter Miami, along with starter Kelvin Leerdam, and veteran center back Gustav Svensson's contract ended. All of this made me question whether Seattle was still in the top tier of teams in this league. Obviously, they were still going to be good, but I wasn't too sure how good. And for this game week, they had to be at their best, because traveling to Seattle was a Minnesota team that had vengeance in their eyes. To make it even more difficult for the Rave Green, they would be without key playmaker Nicolas Lodeiro due to injury. But what they taught me was that no matter who Seattle lost, they are still deadly. I probably shouldn't have even doubted a team that has built success into their identity. They are always clinical in the attack, and that showed in this game. After feeling the pressure in the first half, they came out and slapped up the Loons 4-0 in the second. So the lesson here is that Seattle is just as scary as they were last year. The next point that was shown to me over this past week is that the CONCACAF Champions League has probably taken some energy out of those participating teams. The second leg of the round of 16 games occurred during midweek before these weekend games, so it isn't crazy to think that they may have affected how these teams played. If you haven't been paying attention to the CCL, the 5 teams involved are Atlanta, Columbus, Philadelphia, Portland, and Toronto. And this week, we saw 4 out of those 5 teams produce 0 goals. The only team that managed to get some goals this weekend was Toronto, and one of their 2 goals was a penalty kick. I'm not saying that some of these teams didn't create good chances to get a goal, but the fact that we only saw 1 goal from open play isn't that inspiring. We'll see how these teams do next week after having a full week of rest in the tank. The last thing I learned, well actually relearned from this week, is that MLS is a great league for goals. In the very first game of the season, we saw a goal from San Jose's Marie that probably should have been goal of the week. But then in just the second game, we saw an absolute beauty of a volley scored from outside the box by Seattle's João Paulo, which will probably be in the running for a goal of the season. And that wasn't even the end of it. After all 13 games were played, we saw 35 goals, and 5 of those were goals from outside the box. Another 2 were just inside the 18 by an inch. If you love goals, I'm telling you, watch this league. Now that I've shared my 3 learning points from the weekend, it's time to give you my big loser and winner from these opening games. For my big loser, well, it's no other than Bob Bradley. Before I begin my reasoning, I just want it on the record that I like Bob, and I like LAFC. But even though LAFC won their 4th consecutive opening game, there was one moment that gave the LA coach this title. Around the 20th minute into LAFC's game, Carlos Vela made an attempt to reach for a ball and he needed some medical attention afterwards. So he stood up, walked off the field and made a motion to call over the team's physio. The physio checked Vela out and he was about to walk back into the game, but Bob misunderstood what he was saying. Bradley thought Vela asked for a sub and then subbed him off a minute or so after he went down. So Vela was now officially subbed off even though he was ready to enter the game again. This all led up to Bob Bradley giving an interview during the game on national television where he stated that he jumped the gun and it was his fault for the miscommunication between him and the player. I mean, I don't blame him too much for thinking Vela hurt himself badly because he is coming off a knee injury, but give the man a minute to get checked out fully. It's kind of embarrassing seeing this type of error in a professional game, and that makes Bob Bradley our loser of the week. On to the happier side, Chicharito is my winner of the week. It was hard not to feel bad for the Mexican international after a disastrous debut year in the Galaxy's colors. A horrible year that you can relive through a video I made a few months ago. Since last season ended though, Chicharito has been in a rebuilding stage, not only in his playing career, but also his personal life. He began working with more people who could help him with the mental health side of the game and make him feel more comfortable in his new surroundings. This year, we were expecting a new and improved Chicharito, and after one game, it looks like we may be just getting that. He scored 2 goals in a comeback victory over Inter Miami and already matched his goal total from last year. In a post-match interview, you could see the emotion and relief coming off the forward. He was on the verge of tears as he talked about his journey and the death of his grandfather. This is really just a feel-good story all around, and I'm hoping we see him continue his form for the rest of the year. And finally, there's one special club I would like to highlight, and you can maybe call it my club of the week. It probably would have been a surprise to you if you heard it before the season started, but my club of the week is no other than Club de Foot Montreal. After hearing all this talk about how they were the worst team in the East, how they would struggle after losing Henry, how they couldn't beat Toronto, they silenced the haters, including me, as they defeated their Canadian rivals in a 4-2 win. In my game week preview, I was certain that there was no way Montreal would defeat Toronto, but I will be the first to say it, I underestimated this team. It started off quick in this match as new signing Mason Toye scored in 3 minutes. Then they added another goal in the 24th. 4 goals. They ended up with 4 freaking goals and deservingly outplayed the Revs. 0 to hero, and that makes them my club of the week. And that's it. That is all my highlights from the first week of Major League Soccer. Let me know what you learned from these games and who is your big winner from Game Week 1. Thanks for tuning in, and I will hopefully see you after the next week of action.